Hello, welcome everyone to another Sales Hacker webinar. Many of you know me. My name is Scott Barker, Head of Partnerships and Sales at Sales Hacker. If this is your first webinar with us, special hello to you. Thank you so much for deciding to join us today. And go to the chat feature. Let us know your name, title, where you're from. Maybe we'll do some shout outs. All right, so today we are going to be discussing how to maximize revenue efficiency as you scale your organization. You know, we all want to see our organizations and our sales teams hit that crazy hockey stick growth. But, you know, when that starts happening, that's when the real challenges start, to begin. So I'm very excited to talk to these two gentlemen from Outreach who are actually going through this hyperscaling stage, as we speak. And today they are going to be giving us their strategies, tips, and tricks in order to scale as efficiently as possible. And before I introduce them, just a few really quick housekeeping items. So this will be recorded. So if you have to jump off for any reason or want to share it out with a colleague, we'll be sending this out in the email shortly after we wrap up. This should go for roughly about 45 minutes to an hour. It's going to be casual Q&A style. So we do hope to get as much community engagement as possible. So if you have questions, don't hesitate to jump on, ask them. This is for you, the community. And we'll be fielding relevant questions throughout. And then we planned to leave a little bit of time for Q&A at the end as well. Okay, so now we've got that out of the way, gentlemen. So I wanted to introduce our two guests today. We have Matt Millen, the CRO of Outreach, and Stephen Farnsworth, the Manager of Sales Development at Outreach as well. Matt and Stephen, welcome.
Thanks, Scott. Great to be here with you.
Yeah, thank you. It's my first time, so I'm excited.
I love it. Well, we're excited that you guys are sharing some of your time with us today. I've been looking forward to this one for a while. So as always, I do like to add a little more color to the backgrounds just for some context for the community. So Matt Millen, I'll start with you. So as I mentioned, you are the SVP of Revenue and Operations at Outreach, which is the system of action for sales teams. You bring more than 30 years of sales leadership, and a passion for sales excellence to his responsibilities, which include sales ops, and customer success divisions. And then before joining Outreach, you actually led T-Mobile's business sales team as the vice president, where you led national sales teams and strategy, which is pretty cool. And then this one, I love this one. Previous to that, you were actually the VP of sales for Tony Robbins companies. That must have been interesting and really cool, which you were responsible for driving sales and owning the entire customer experience there. And then earlier at Gateway Computers, you also grew the small and medium business divisions and increased market share as VP and general manager. And you've also held leadership positions at Tech Data and government acquisitions. Impressive stuff. Good to chat with you again, and I'm excited to pick your brain today.
Glad to be here. It's been a fun ride. And then we got this guy.
And then we got it. And then we've got Stephen Farnsworth, who is an SDR manager currently at Outreach. And you're managing the mid-market sales development team, I understand. You were promoted actually after being one of Outreach's top SDRs. And that's going to give you this new lens where you can look at it both from a rep and a manager level, which is really interesting. And so you know exactly what it takes to perform at a high level in the world of sales development. And previously to that, you managed corporate strategy at an insurance company with a specific focus on their sales and marketing processes and strategy.
Yep.
I love it.
That's me. Thank you. Thanks for having
me. That's you. I love it. All right, guys, so this is going to be a good one. I don't want to really waste any time. I want to just dive right into it. And Matt, I'm going to give you the first question. I think it's important that we set the stage a little bit. So what does revenue efficiency mean, and why should it be important to audience members that everyone's tuning in today?
Yes, that's great. It's a great question. Revenue efficiency is doing more with less. It's that simple. We don't have to make this complicated. And for many of us, it's how much you're willing to spend to make $1 of revenue.
Right.
And that's really what it boils down to. And depending on how long customers stay with you, how much profits in every deal, there's a lot of determination, but it comes down to doing more with less and how much you'll spend to make a buck. Why it's important matters, right? So number one, the more efficient you are, the more reinvestment opportunity you have. And you can reinvest in your product, your R&D, you can reinvest in your growth. You mentioned hyper growth in your introduction. Well, hyper growth and efficiency are very different because hyper growth requires investment. And only the most efficient companies can effectively fund that. But let me give you an example. So let's say there's two companies. I'll just bring this to life. You have two companies. And one's a little bit more efficient than the other, but we both buy leads for $5 a lead. And Scott, if you can convert leads 20% more effectively than the other company, but you're both buying leads for $5, there's a couple of things here. Number one, you're more effectively converting that into potential revenue. But if you think about it, the increase in conversion, because of your efficiency and effectiveness, you could actually go buy more expensive leads. And with that higher conversion, have the same net impact to your organization. So there's real benefit as these efficiencies play through the model.
Right. So you can essentially take that 20%, that efficiency, and reinvest in a higher quality lead that's going to make you even more efficient. There
you go. You create a cycle of growth and a cycle of innovation. And I know Scott and I, you and I were just talking before this started. And this is not new. So folks that are joining and is this a new topic? This is not a new topic at all. In fact, just the notion of efficiency, I'll just give you a parallel here. Manufacturing started to modernize in the Industrial Revolution in the 18th century, and it continues to modernize today with the introduction of robotics. Manufacturing is always looking for that edge to produce things with higher quality and lower cost. Marketing. Marketing automation in the 2000s came in. There's a great expression in marketing, half my money is wasted, but I want to know which half it is. Marketing automation helped marketing professionals figure that out with advancement. And now it's sales' turn. Sales is the organization within the organization that's chartered with bringing the company's innovations to market. And for some reason, sales was like the last one to get the big investment. But now it's here, right? So now we have platforms and tools that allow us to have insight into the data that's being done so we can make smarter decisions to get better efficiency and better output. And I would just say to that point, there's two major shifts in this evolution. One is the amount of data that's available today. The amount of data that's available. And we'll talk more about that, and we'll get some examples further on, but there's more data than ever in terms of the activities or the tasks that we're completing, but the disposition of those tasks. We're getting smarter about what to do, when to do it, who to do it to and for, at what time, and this is allowing us to be much more efficient. The second evolution is what I call role specialization. It's not my term, but role specialization. What we're seeing is that if you think about the buyer's experience or the buyer's journey through your sales process, that is now getting broken up. When I started selling in 1987, I did everything. I was a full cycle AE all morning long. I was cold calling the set meetings. In the afternoon, I was running meetings. And after a year of my success, I had so many accounts. I had to choose between expanding my accounts and getting new business for the company. And that's changing today. We see organizations that have either role specialized through the structure of their team, or they're looking at role specialization to start tackling some of these efficiency opportunities. So we have an SDR manager here. So this organization outreach, we've decided that it makes more sense from an efficiency perspective to break off the top of the funnel activity to structure for our closers. And then our closers hand off that business to somebody that onboards the client, gets them to 85% adoption. And then once they're on, then we hand them over to a client success manager who ensures that our customers are extracting maximum value off the platform. And then we think about the upsell, the cross-sell, the retention experience. That's all been like role specialized.
Right.
That helps us drive a different level of efficiency.
Got it. Makes complete sense. I have a question. I'm just curious. When you were forced to make that decision way back when versus expanding and net new, what did you go with?
Depended on my pipeline.
Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough.
I have to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah, where you've got tremendous opportunity to expand accounts, you're going to spend your time there. And,
Yeah.
Many of your accounts, sometimes you go in and you sell pretty much the share wallet, and there's not a lot of expansion opportunity. So it's really understanding who you've sold to and how much share wallet's left.
Makes sense. So there's no magic bullet. Shoot. I thought there would be one.
You got to fill up the wallet.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I want to dive into that because all these things are awesome, but who's held accountable for this idea of revenue efficiency?
Everybody. Right down from the CEO. I mean, this is a super important metric. The CEO, the CFO, the people leading your revenue teams, through the management layer. And then the work is, here when we get into the second part of this, really like tactically, like what are you doing to eke out these efficiencies? Like literally the line level work where you're A/B testing, trying something different, and how you isolate that so you can really understand the impacts of the moves that you're making. So it's everybody in the organization has a hand in this revenue efficiency. Yeah,
makes sense. All right. So how do you see then this idea, this revenue efficiency initiative affecting the future of sales?
How about if we say the future is here?
Yeah, it most definitely is. It most definitely is.
The future is here. We got flying cars, or at least self-driving cars. But here's, I think what we have is the future is here, and it's evolving with data science and machine learning really starting to add value. But the future is here. And what we're seeing is like more of like an adoption curve. So you have some companies who for years now have had a competitive advantage because they've been able to really understand their sales process, really understand what it takes. And they're constantly just tweaking like these micro maneuvers and these micro moves within the sales process to optimize every step. Like as an example, one of the things that we've done here is all of our our leads. We take all of our lead procurement off the SDR shop. So by the time leads are done and cultivated and they hand over to SDRs can just work the lead. We don't want to take like any sales time and trying to figure out which are the right leads. So we've been able to like micro segment that body of work over, take that sales process and add, like that's an example of one level of efficiency that we've been able to drive into our motion. Yeah.
Just to clarify then, so your SDRs at Outreach, they're not doing any research other than once they get the actual lead. They're not looking for new ones.
No, well, there's a difference between doing research on a lead and trying to come up with a list of leads to work.
Right.
Very different value there. So we'll go into that. But here's the big shift. So we talked about the adoption curve. Here's the big shift is up to some point, you rely on habit or bias. Habit being what we've always done and it seems to work, or bias like is a gut instinct. And the challenge is sometimes we have bad habits and sometimes our biases just don't work or they're not right. And that's being changed. Now we have data and insights replacing bias and habit. So just some examples. You could literally have two sales managers in a room arguing at lunch when the better time to make phone calls is. One sales manager thinks it's 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock in the morning. One thinks it's 2 to 3 in the afternoon, right? One of them is right. And the data will tell you which is right. Here's another one. Which email is more effective? We took this email, we had two emails side by side. Ask 100 people, which one do you think works better? It's all based on bias.
Yeah.
99 out of the 100 people picked the email that was less effective.
No way. Interesting.
But let the data guide you. Think about the efficiency. Another one, like what to do next. Sometimes, you get to a point in the sales process, what do I do next?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the organization has done next many times, and understanding based on historical patterns of what actually has been most effective is better than guessing or just haphazardly asking somebody what to do next. So there's real concrete examples where the data can liberate you in terms. Now, like we shouldn't be scared of the data. What the data does is the data frees us up to do more art. So we've heard this expression, the art and science of selling. What the science does is it frees you up to do more art. In other words, if I'm making the calls at the right time when they're more likely to pick up, I'm using the email that's more likely to get open, read, and responded to. If I'm making the next move that more likely is going to generate some kind of response, then am I more or less likely to end up on the phone with you, Scott, to have that conversation?
More, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Right. So we shouldn't be scared of the science coming into sales. We should embrace it, because at the end of the day, as salespeople, we just want the at-bats. We just want to get up there and have those conversations. And if there's things that I can be doing that allow me to have more of those conversations to the right person at the right time, sign me up.
Yeah, absolutely. And this has actually come up before, and so many people always say AI is going to replace salespeople, and there's all this like scare, and I totally agree with you there, Matt, that it's AI and automation and big data is actually going to allow sales reps who are good to be more human, not less human, because like you said, more time to be creative, thoughtful,
That's right.
personalized, human. I love that.
Yeah, it's the wrong conversation. When the conversation is automation or personalization, or that's not the right conversation. You don't have to give up one to get the other.
Right.
You can have them both if you know how to leverage the data to free up the art. Yeah,
that's awesome. So it's all about replacing bias and habit with data and insights. I love that. There's actually a really good book called The Power of Habit that everyone should check out. It's really, really
everybody should read that book, by the way.
It's a cool one for sure. Okay, so bringing it back, Matt, we're going to go with you again on this one. So what are some common efficiency pain points, we can call them bottlenecks, that you see across a revenue organization?
Yeah, there's and I appreciate the question. I'll probably reframe it from pain points to opportunity areas.
Okay. I like it. Positive mindset. I love it.
It's, yeah, I mean, it's just part, like, and I'll touch on four. There's the inbound lead flow. There's any time that there's a handoff. So we'll use an example of an SDR setting a meeting for an AE. That's an example of one. You have some post-sales opportunities where you're either onboarding customers or a cross-sell, upsell function. And then lastly, like onboarding new reps. Like you can drive efficiency into the onboarding process to cut down ramp time, which increases time to value, which increases revenue efficiency. But let's start with the inbound workflow. Yeah. Because this is always an interesting one. I can't tell you how many times in my career my marketing partner would say, "Hey, you've got 100 leads, no one's followed up on. Like, get going." Like in the old days, we get lists that we'd have to call on. Like this is the old days.
Yeah. Still the age-old struggle. Nothing changes.
Yeah, but the future's here. Like this is one of those where the future's here. You have to embrace it. So that Dr. James Oldroyd, who did some awesome research over 3 years on some companies, that a rep is 100 times more likely to get contact with a lead if they make their first contact within 5 minutes rather than 30 minutes.
Wow.
Now, I'm using 5 minutes to 30 minutes, where there's many organizations where the marketing leads could just fall on the floor and not get worked.
Right.
Or it could take a week to get worked. The research that Oldroyd did says it's 100x improvement going from 30 to 5 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, like it is. It's a wow. That's like a wow moment. So for everybody, paying attention, you just imagine the efficiency you drive through your organization, because many organizations, when they look at revenue efficiency, they're looking at the marketing and sales cost. That's what they're breaking up sales. So like that's a huge one. And customer engagement platforms like Outreach, where you can modernize this whole process and ensure that 100% of the time this is getting done in 5 minutes, 100% of the time. The future's here. That's a great example of one.
Definitely. Sorry, Matt, just to get further clarification, I'm not sure if you know this. Did Dr. James Eldroyd, was it different styles of leads? Like, was this a white paper versus maybe a demo request? Do you know? Because I know there is some difference, and there's some talk around response times with the different quality of leads.
Yeah. So I can't answer that. I know he studied, I think it was 6 companies over 3 years.
Okay.
Like it'd be good. And the last name's Oldroyd, Oldroyd.
Okay. I'll check it out.
Yeah, check it out. Answer it for us.
Yeah, we'll do.
Someone should Google that real quick and chat it in. We probably have like
Please
a bonus for that person. Like I'm sure you'd sponsor a gift card if somebody like could chat in the answer to that. Be awesome.
100%.
100%.
$10 gift, Starbucks gift card on me.
Oh, come on. Let's multiply that by 10. I'll go in with you.
Perfect.
I'll go in. Let's make it 100. All right. Because we play bigger here.
There you go.
So that's a great example. Another one, like if you think about a place that you can drive massive efficiency in an organization, and for all the organizations that have an SDR team, MDR, BDR, whatever it may be, that does some top of the funnel generation for sales and then hands that over to the AE, there are so many opportunities there. And we'll start off by looking at all the conversion points. So there's an amount of work that goes in, amount of calling and whatever tasks that are done by your organization to get somebody on the phone. So there's an efficiency opportunity in terms of what it takes just to get someone on the phone to set the meeting or not. And then you get the meeting set, then, does that meeting run? So you have an opportunity to increase the efficiency between set and run. There's a lot of great best practices, and we can touch on a few today if we have time, but a lot of great best practices to get your run rate up, your set to run ratio. So that's a huge opportunity. Then the runs that, turn into a qualified opportunity, whatever, SQL, MQL, like whatever you want to call that, and then so on. And the reason I pick on the SDR to AE handoff is because it's early stage of the sales process. And anything that you can impact early stage is magnified through. I mean, you can make efficiency changes all the way through, but the ones that impact top of the funnel just create the broadest possible top of your sales funnel. So you really want to pay close attention.
Right. Compounding there when it happens. Yeah, got it.
So there's a lot that you can do there. Post-sales, again, you think about customer onboarding, whatever that looks like, whatever your product is. You talk about like efficiently and effectively getting your customers onboarded to whatever product you sell. You get them onboarded correctly, they're going to be less reliant on service and support as a result of that. So they're a more efficient customer. Mm-hmm. They're extracting more value from whatever product that you've sold, so they're more likely to stay and grow. And many of the customer acquisition models are built on a concept where you pay a little bit more for new business, and you're making your money on business staying on your platform or expanding over time. So really focusing on that onboarding motion is critical to really seeing through your total customer value, lifetime customer value, your like how long they stay with you. Is it 14 months, 18 months, 22, 26 months? Like if you can really do it right, you can really start getting some favorable returns, and that changes your revenue efficiency numbers.
Makes total sense. So you should be looking, those are the three ones you should be looking at, just to reiterate. So the inbound lead handling is a big one, SDRE handoff, and then post-sales success.
And I got one more.
One more, please.
One more.
Take it all.
Yeah. So what we think about is, how quickly can we get our own team productive? Right. Because that's the other piece. Like the quicker I can get someone productive, like this fine young gentleman, the quicker that we're getting payback off the investment that we've made. So one of the things that we do is we look at we have a new class come in every month, and I take an average of production for every month that they are in ramp as a cohort, and we track over time how every class performs relative to ramp and relative to other classes. And we're constantly making changes to our onboarding. We're constantly making changes to our training. We're constantly making changes to our hiring practices. And what I can do is I can literally see by the cohort of each hiring class, are the changes we're making, like giving us better efficiency. So for instance, Scott, like if you join my next class, are you more productive than two classes ago? Like, are the changes we're making, the investments we're making, like paying off? So you're hitting full quota a whole month earlier.
Yeah.
So like this notion of driving efficiency through the organization, you said like who's responsible? Like everybody is. Like I just gave you like 4 examples that are just all over the organization. And these are just 4 examples. These aren't the only examples, but this is just how we can think about driving efficiency through the engine that we built.
I love it. And can you actually give us an example of one of those recent tweaks that you made for, let's say, SDR onboarding for a class?
Oh, absolutely. So one of the tweaks that we made for both our SDRs and our AEs is this. In the past, you would go through our boot camp, we call it, but our training, and then you would basically go out to your manager, whoever you were assigned to, and then start your ramp. But what we've done on the SDRs, and I'll just use that as an example, is we have a dedicated manager whose job is only to work with the SDRs in their first 90 days. So you come out of the boot camp training, and then you live in a team. So every 30 days, a new class comes in and a class graduates.
Yep.
And that class goes to their manager. And what this does is it puts the SDRs in a very controlled environment. You're not surrounded by people that have been there a year. And this is a group that are doing the fundamentals. They're doing the basics. They're getting rigor and discipline around the daily activities that make them successful. They're not getting too fancy too quick.
Yeah.
They're using the script that works.
Mm-hmm.
And 90 days of that, like boom, like you're coming out of that, like no different than basic training in the Army, no different than
ready to go.
Ready to go. And then when you hit the floor, like you are just ready to go.
Yeah.
And that's something that we've done on both sides of the house, and it's had a big impact for us because there's a different level of nurturing. Like if you just join my team, and I've got AEs that have been here a year and a half with a full funnel, working big deals, and you've just joined my team, and I've got to help you get going. Like I might be working on the big deals at the end of the month, and you need my help and can't get it, right? So we found a way to really serve the needs of two individual groups to drive efficiency in turning our business, as well as getting people ramped successfully.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That makes total sense. All right. So let's shift gears a little bit. Matt, thank you for all the insights. Steven, it's time for, you're on the hot seat now, my man. So I think at this point, we just outlined a lot of the strategy and reasons for the importance of revenue efficiency. So it'd be great to go a little more tactical. So I wanted to get some insight into how you actually implement some of these things that we talked about across a sales development team. So let's start with, can you give us an example of steps you've taken to make the sales development team more revenue efficient? And what did you notice that actually moved the needle?
That's a great question. I'll start by highlighting something that Matt went over and over and over again. You will have heard it. If you played back through his conversation, you'd hear many instances where I brought this up. But it's something we live by here, which is what got us there won't get us to where we want to be in the future. But what got us here won't get us there. That's what we call it. And it's really important to understand in sales and probably in any function is that adaptability is key. Things are changing constantly. Like this whole idea that he just brought up of having somebody who manages our SDR team that's just newly onboarding and our AE team that does the exact same thing. This is a recent change. What's it been, 6 months that we've been doing this? And so the recent change, and the reason we've done it is to be able to take a lot of these things that we're learning, both in the data and through this experience that we see, and to start making positive changes on it. And something that we're constantly evaluating. And as he said, we're looking at the last class to see how they're doing. When we bring somebody on in the future, we expect them to do better and better. And so this idea of being adaptable is like key to everything that anyone does, especially in this tech space where things are changing on a weekly basis. So I will say, Matt has made my job hard to implement these strategies because they're constantly changing. But that's something that still is really as important, is to be able to understand where the leadership is so that you can start implementing what's changing as it's changing.
Yeah. And let me just pile on that as a leader, testing, constantly measuring, and making those micro improvements constantly. Now you want to do it in a controlled environment where you're not testing so many things you don't know what worked or didn't. So you want to test one thing at a time, but you got to keep testing and you got to let the data guide the way.
Perfect. Yeah. And feel free to jump in whenever you like. All right. One of the things I think when you ask for specific examples, I want to back up a little bit. I don't know if Matt and Scott, are either of you at least like know of the idea of a blue ocean versus a red ocean strategy. Have you heard this term before?
Yep.
Same thing?
Yep.
Okay. For those of the viewers who maybe aren't as familiar with it, the blue ocean strategy is where every business hopes to play in, at least initially. And it's where they're looking for a spot to play in. And the reason and kind of the explanation behind that is a blue ocean is a world where you've got nothing in front of you. It's a world of high differentiation. There's no blood in the water yet. Like there aren't sharks. There's not a lot of competition. It's where you seek when you're creating a business. You're looking for a niche to be able to compete in. And your strategy is going to be totally different in how you play in a blue ocean than a red ocean. Red ocean, there's sharks in the water. There's competition. There's blood, and there's a very different approach to that. And
Right.
so I think what's interesting is in 2017. I can't speak to prior because I started here in April last year. But in 2017, I think at least on the SDR side, our unstated 2017 strategy was far more playing in a blue ocean. Like blue ocean, we had this, it was still relatively new. Like people hadn't heard of us. We were just calling and trying to just do this brand education on not even brand, like category education on what is sales engagement? What is customer engagement? Like what is that in the first place? And so that's the world we were living in. And so that's the sales strategy we adopted was, man, we've got as many leads, accounts, prospects as we can possibly imagine. So let's go crazy. Let's make a lot of calls. Let's send a lot of emails. Like let's do something that will allow us to get in front of as many people as possible right now. And what's interesting is as we've looked and really spent more time on this concept of revenue efficiency, I started feeling probably towards the latter end of 2017, somewhat of a slowdown. Now, it wasn't necessarily showing up yet. It showed up a little bit later, but a slowdown in the sense that, hey, maybe our strategy is changing. Some of the things that we were doing before don't seem to be working quite as well. And so on the SDR side, we had to make some somewhat dramatic changes to become a player in a red ocean. As more competitors have come up, as the space has gotten a lot more traction, it's something that we've had to learn to compete differently. And so one of the things that we've done is constantly, the moment I moved from SDR to SDR manager, I heard, man, my accounts just suck. I don't have enough leads. I don't have prospects. And everyone lives in a different world.
No way.
Prospects. It was constantly like, man, my accounts suck. And so what I really want to understand is that true? Because I think in some instances we have to give some level of credibility and say, hey, there's some level of credence to these individuals and say, hey, maybe that's true. Maybe they're not in the greatest environment to succeed. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I started realizing is, man, we are playing in a blue ocean still. Like that's our sales development strategy, at least right now. Mm-hmm. But it's red ocean now. And so we have to switch that. Like our prospecting strategy hadn't caught up with the time that our category was in.
Right.
And so it's something that, like, as we thought of this concept as I don't have enough leads, well, it's true. They didn't have enough leads from how we were asking them to act. And now what we've done is we've said, okay, now we need to ask them and expect them to do things differently to be able to play in the environment that we have currently. So I feel like you want to jump in and say something. Okay, I just want to make sure. So it's something that, and I don't need to like do the math. We don't all need to get out our calculators or Excel sheets. But at the beginning of 2017, we had like 10 or 15 SDRs. Let's just say 10 for like simplicity's sake. Okay, it wasn't very many. And again, I don't know how many accounts we have. That's where we take an account-based sales approach to everything we do. But if we have 10,000 accounts, if that's like our ICP, that's our ideal customer, and I've got 10 SDRs, that means every single person can have 1,000 accounts realistically. Which is, man, that's awesome. Like, wow, you have a ton. And what's interesting is the expectation for those reps back in the beginning of 2017, late 2016, was for those reps to generate about 6 sales accepted leads. It's the concept of SAL. The sales accepted lead, they were supposed to get 6 out of those 1,000 accounts per month. And now that's doubled. And each one of our SDRs has about a quarter of as many accounts. So when you talk about revenue efficiency, we've had to become far more efficient as we've scaled our team with the accounts that we have, because we live in a specific world, a finite world, where we have to be able to deal with each account in a more efficient process.
Yeah, makes total sense. And I think it's something that every organization kind of goes through exactly what you guys are going through right now, or at least any successful organization that is lucky enough to get there. So I'm curious to build on that. So you mentioned all these kind of changes now that you're going from this blue ocean strategy. You've now realized that, okay, we're actually in a red ocean now. How do you deal with that? How are you guys dealing with that?
So a number of different ways. So one of the things that you do is you expand your product offering. So our product early on was viewed as more of an SDR tool. Now we sell to AEs, we sell to customer success. So we sell what we call wall-to-wall. So one way to open up the universe is by expanding your target or your market. Number two, you expand your ideal customer profile. So what we've also done is we've been able to go out and say, hey, our universe, isn't just the sun anymore. Now we've hit a few rings. We went from Mercury to Venus to Earth. Like we're expanding out in concentric circles. And so there's a lot of things that you continue to do really to support the growth. But the point that Stephen makes is while we were doing this work to sustain our growth trajectory, we had to become much more efficient and effective with what we were doing while we were expanding the universe from a product perspective, from a customer perspective, and both of those were happening at the same time. Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Stephen, anything to add there?
I'll just say that this whole concept of being adaptable, and we've had to figure that out both on the SDR management side, on the SDR side. The world is constantly changing in terms of what world we compete in. And like you said, we're making product updates. We're changing the accounts that we go after. And so that's happening like real time. And we have to be able to figure out quickly how to do that. And so one of the things that I find interesting off of what he said is as we maybe can dial down and look at, let's say that we're competing in cybersecurity or in manufacturing or some specific industry where we want to start going out into more or start focusing more into. One of the things I want to understand at a more tactical level is who on my team is really good with getting into these sorts of accounts. Like as I mentioned, people are saying, I don't have enough leads. Well, let me take a look at what you're actually doing. Let's look at the accounts. At least here, you have a kind of a nice world where you're given a number of accounts. Mm-hmm. I can look and say, okay, this person has this issue with the leads of the accounts that we've given them. Let me really dial down and understand what productivity have we gotten out of each one of these accounts? How much pipeline have you generated out of what we've given you? And what we've found is in certain cases, these people that have said, I don't have enough leads, they haven't done well. They haven't been as efficient. Maybe they're not as good on the phones. A lot of the sales skills that would make them successful just haven't been as present. Whereas on the other hand, we've seen certain people who have had the same complaint. And I've looked in and said, wow, actually, when I really look into this, we did some of this with our data science team and we got really deep. We looked and saw, oh, wow, there are certain people here who maybe aren't as successful as they'd like to be. And they have some valid concerns because when I look at their account load or when I look at their lead load, they're actually being very efficient with what we'd expect them to get into. And so I know as a leader, if I can open up a new area or a new quadrant or whatever, and it gives me a big new group of accounts or a new area that we can focus on, I know where I can get the most lift from that individual, from this core group. So it's been super helpful to at least understand that, at least on the data side, so that then I know what results I can get when we make those changes.
Yeah. And we ran an analysis for one of our customers, Scott, where we took a look at all the emails that we're getting and we started using machine learning and data science to really understand, what was separating the top reps from the lower performing reps. And what was interesting was how they responded to an email response that had an objection in it. Now, the way the company had chose to provide training was, look, respond to the positive ones first, aggregate all the objections and handle those at the end of the day or the end of the week.
Okay. Yeah.
But the most successful reps were taking the emails with objection, who saw that as like a positive sign of conversation. Yeah. They were addressing the objection immediately. Those reps that actually approached the objections as an opportunity, hit them first and immediately were the most successful.
Yeah.
So again, here's one where you have this bias that says, oh, hit the easy ones first and do this later. So it's not even about account load. It's not about persona. It's about like your attitude toward the flow of the business. What's the prescription of how you handle it? And then can we use data to say, you know what? If we just do the same business differently by responding to objections in the moment, just like responding to an inbound lead within minutes rather than hours, days, or never, like we get a completely different result. And by the way, it's the same rep. Like the same rep, just changing the order of the response can go from a lower performing rep to a higher performing rep. So it's not even if it's the right rep, the wrong rep. It's just about the direction they're getting. And is the direction you're getting based on science, or is the direction you're getting based on what someone else did or what you thought is right? And not that we're wrong or bad people, but data knows best.
Yeah.
Like if we leave this with anything, like if we leave today with anything, I would just say, like, embrace the data. Like, really, like, let the data guide you. Let the data liberate you to make better decisions, to make better movements in your business all day long.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't fight it. Like, embrace it. It'll make you more money.
Absolutely. So yeah, any AEs that are listening to this, definitely, take that data, and next time you get that objection email and you're pulling out your hair, you should be licking your chops and getting super excited and, respond right away, get it done. Data tells you that.
Someone took the time to say, I need more information.
Totally.
The easiest thing to do is just not respond back. So if someone sends you an email, give them some attention.
Yeah. We coach our team. The moment you get any sort of objection of any sort, even if it's, hey, but I'm not interested, you get on the phone and you call that person instantly. So that person, again, they didn't ignore you. They actually said something. You don't know if they're confused about your offering. You don't know anything, but that they actually gave you the time of day. So call them.
Boom.
Yeah, absolutely. And they'll most likely give you the time on the day on the phone as well. Yeah. So I love that approach.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So going back to the outreach, sales development team, I know you guys have grown significantly, probably an understatement, over the past 12 months. How do you maintain these practices that we're talking about, but you do so at scale?
It's a great question. So first of all, I guess we are lucky to have a tool like outreach that helps us to implement and kind of take the best practices that we've designed over time and implement it well across new members.
So you guys are kind of cheating, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's a little bit. Well, and I won't focus there, but like the nice thing is that a certain part of the onboarding and training process as we grow is taken care of. So training can be focused elsewhere, which is why we've done what Matt mentioned earlier. We decided, hey, there is something special to having somebody dedicated to training reps as they come on board. Over the first 2-3 months, like they need not necessarily their hand held. I don't want to make them seem like they can't do it on their own. There's value in that as well, but in helping them consistently receive the same message so that your team can do something consistent across 20, 30, 40 people, so that you can start taking the data-driven approach of what works better and better and better, like and keep iterating accordingly. And so it's something that we've made that change to have a manager, 100% dedicated to that new team. I will say one project, at least that I've been involved in, and I know everyone doesn't have these exact same resources available, but I've been working a lot with our data science team. And one of the things that they've been able to do is to really help us classify what it is that the best reps are doing and what it is that the worst reps are doing. And everything's tracked obviously through the different platforms that we use. But our data science team has helped us to understand when reps are doing things that they should, when reps are doing things that they shouldn't, maybe when reps aren't doing certain things that they really should be. Like, we've been able to classify all the things that we care about new reps learning and experiencing, and then using the data team, our analysis team, to really tell us exactly where we're missing out. And so we're able to better focus our efforts. For example, the very, very first SDR team that we brought on in this new cycle. Okay, so we have this brand new SDR team. We have this new manager who's going to be managing them in this onboarding cycle. They were taught one way, and the way that they were taught was, hey, they were given a certain number of accounts. They were trained a certain way, and it was very automation focused, which is can be good and bad. There's a balance to everything, but it's probably balanced too heavily towards automation. And as we looked at this with the data science team, we saw that, okay, for the first month or two, they actually beat their ramp. They were doing really well for the first month or two because automation was helping them get some of the low-hanging fruit. But they weren't being, like, they had no focus on more of the art in sales. They had no focus on being more personalized, customized, research-driven. Like, they weren't doing those things. And so at month 3, especially as they were getting to that higher ramp, like fully ramped level, things weren't working out as well. And it was really interesting. It was a cause for concern to some extent. That what we've done though is, as we looked into the numbers, this next class, we're actually trying something completely different. Again, it's all just about being adaptable. Where right now, the new class that's come on is being 100% personalized in their first couple touches on somebody. Now, do we utilize automation still? Absolutely. Are we still using the platform and to enable these reps to have more time in the day? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But they are being far more research driven in their approach right at the beginning of their approach with some of their main contacts. And it's been something that we've seen a much stronger lift. And so it's something that we're just constantly iterating on this team. And it's by having that focus on the data, we're able to know which direction we're moving.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So like teaching those soft skills on how to research effectively, how to personalize, actually should come before you give them all the fancy tools that allows them to do that at scale.
And it depends. I mean, I can say that that's worked for us in our group in the last couple months. What's hard about all these conversations is it's not going to apply to the same group the same way, and it won't necessarily apply to us in 6 months or a year, which is why you need to have a good understanding of what your sales team is going through.
Mm-hmm. And if you're at a blue ocean or a red ocean.
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, that's been a big thing for us.
Yeah, totally. Okay, Stephen, I think this is last question, then I'll get to some of the great questions we have from the audience as well here. So thanks, everyone. We'll get to your questions at the end here. So what are the points of consideration when you're deciding how fast to grow your team? When and in the most efficient way? I know this is, everyone's struggling with this. You get a bunch of wins. You're like, okay, let's just bring on a bunch of reps. What should people be considering?
It's a great question. On our end, one of the first points of consideration that I would really think through before I really went out and scaled my team is how am I supporting my current team? Like, I think the average, I think I read a study where the average SDR manager manages somewhere around 7 reps. That's great. I think that's fine. If that's 7 brand new reps, like all day one, I think you're going to struggle. I think you're going to struggle to really handle 7 reps efficiently at a full capacity on day 1 through 30. I think they're really going to struggle. But if you've got 5 or 6 or 7 players, like strong core players on your team, you've got a project or 2, and you've got a new rep or 2, I think you can manage a lot more. So a big part of before I'm planning on hiring a bunch, I'm going to want to understand what my capacity is as a manager, what my team looks like, so I know that I'm putting people in a position to win when they come on board. So that's a big part of it.
Yeah, I would also say there's a couple of things that are also driving that decision. One's the growth of the company. Like, if you're growing and you're going to have to maintain ratios between the SDR and the AE, then you're going to need more managers and more teams. So there's a lot of like your growth trajectory and how you're staffing your growth and investing in that growth. The other thing too is really the balance between inbound and outbound. As that mix, like we really haven't talked about that mix, and there's different efficiencies, depending on what your cost per lead is from the inbound perspective versus what it costs to go outbound, and how when your brand gets stronger, the category gets more well-known, and you're more effectively and efficiently driving inbound leads and conversion, is how are you optimizing between those two groups. So there's like a number of things that really go into like how when to grow and how to grow. And I would just say it's unique. Everyone on the phone today here, it's really unique to our business model, and the dynamics in our specific markets.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. We could probably do a second webinar just on that topic alone, and especially the inbound versus outbound kind of balance there as well. Okay, so let's kind of start wrapping some of this discussion up and get some of the community questions, because there are some good ones. But before we do that, I always love to ask this question. So if there's one thing you'd like to leave the community or the audience with from this webinar, what would it be? And let's start with Steven.
Yeah, let me start because Matt will be able to build off of mine easily. He'll better articulate what I'm going to say. I think this is going to sound kind of funny coming from outreach, someone who sells a sales platform for salespeople. There's so many sales platforms and sales tools out there that can really increase your efficiency and the productivity more than anyone could have ever imagined was possible. One of the things that Matt has made very clear, and I don't know if I'll be able to say this verbatim, but it's something that he mentions frequently, is that data really sets you free to do the art. So these tools, I mean, there's a responsibility that comes with them. Like good salespeople with strong sales skills, and in essence, they've been taught and trained correctly, can use these tools to really amplify what they're doing. But it's not, I want to make this very clear, like having these tools and these things that exist is not an excuse not to do your job. At the end of the day, you still have to be like a good, strong salesperson and understand all of the, have that art that can come from you. And every person is going to have a different style, and that's fine. It should come out in all that they do in sales, and then use these tools to amplify that more and more. So that's probably what I'd say, is that you still need to have the art, and the platforms will give you the time to be able to scale that art out.
Embrace the science. Embrace the science.
Yeah.
Replace your bias and habits with data and insights.
Mm-hmm. I love it. That's great advice. And I love that. You embrace the data, and it's going to allow you to focus on your art. You get to be an artist rather than just, going through the motions as a sales professional. That's cool. Okay, so let's go. So we got some good questions here. So this one is actually from anonymous attendee. Didn't want to share the name. That's all right. What do you two think about using third-party firms to manage SDRs, like the outsource model, which is getting a lot of popularity, it seems, these days? Can that build efficiency in a sales org?
Yeah. So first of all, we've got a lot of great customers that provide that service for other companies. So I think it comes down to a couple things. Number one, there's times, for instance, when you need to be able to burst meeting production. And if you think about the time it takes to hire, train, and get full ramp production off a new employee, that can be 4 to 5 months down the road if you've got a good hiring funnel and a relationship with one of these firms, even just to contract 90 days of meetings to burst through while someone's coming on. So I think whether that's your sole strategy, that's a decision you make. Whether or not it's more of a burst strategy or augmenting your hiring strategy, again, but as long as here's what I would say. If they're running your script, right? So if they're doing what you would do, they have to commit to knowing your story just as well as you do, because they're representing your brand. And if they're just as busy as you would be, so they're saying the right things, they're working hard and getting it done, and the economics are fair, why not?
Yeah, makes sense. Steven, anything to add there?
I have less
You're
experience.
probably in favor
I trust
of
Matt
keeping
on
it in-house, eh?
Say that again?
You're probably in favor of keeping it all in-house, eh?
Yeah, I'd like to keep the growth here, but no, that all makes sense. That feels right.
Awesome. Okay, this is a great one as well. Again, this is from anonymous, but how do you launch a new product at outreach? You mentioned, you've made all these tweaks to the product. Do you give it to like all the SDRs and AEs, or do you focus on like a few and let them like slowly push it out?
What a great question, anonymous. That is, so a couple of things, a lot, if I even take one step back, our internal users and our customers have been helping us build product for 3 years. Because as we've introduced the workflow into sales, and they're like, put voice in, we make phone calls, put meetings in, we set meetings, and when I hand meetings over, bring in opportunity, I text to my client. Like, our customers have done a really great job of helping us like build out our product as we go wall to wall across the different customer facing personas. And then what we'll do is a couple of things. Is as we're building it out, there's certain internal users that really help us get it right from a UI perspective. How does it fit into the workflow? Does it have enough value where oftentimes like a point solution is going to get compromised in the process? So you won't need a third-party schedule anymore because meetings is now built into the platform as an example. And then we'll start using it, make sure that we've worked through and And then we go through an alpha and a beta. So, we'll have certain orgs very early on, making sure that we've got this right. Then we'll go into beta and then ultimately general availability. So, there's a series, but I'll tell you, this is a customer-driven process. And I would also say that the internal teams at Outreach are customers. Mm-hmm. Like, we use this. We don't, well, again, we put this on and we live it all day. So it's a customer-driven process.
Got it. Makes sense. Yeah, that was a great question, Anonymous. Come on, share your name, Anonymous. We got to know who you are. You've got all these great
questions.
How
about a gift card if they put their name in?
Okay, so we've got one from Vincent. Thanks for the question, Vincent. So this is around training your BDRs. We talked a little bit about this. When they have different levels of skill, like coming in, maybe one's been a BDR for 2 years and one is, fresh out of college. Do you split those up, or do you put them all together so they can kind of learn from each other?
That's a good question. One of the things that I've found in terms of handling different experience, young and right out of college, or those with lots and lots of experiences, you really can't have an ego when you come into sales. Like, you have to drop that. You have to leave that at the door, or you're going to struggle. Like, every single sales organization is going to have very different sales processes, very different expectations. And so one of the things that I love is when somebody, whether they're experienced or not, is when they're willing to be taught. And so that's the advice I'd give to anybody, is that I think one of our manager now, who's handling the onboarding, they're now having all the SDRs write cool on a card. Have you heard of this? They all write cool on a card, and then they're told to come in and give their cool card to the SDR manager right at the beginning and say, hey, you're not cool anymore. Like, we're gonna put you in uncomfortable situations the next few weeks and months. We're gonna have you role play in front of each other. Like, we're gonna do all these things that are gonna make you very uncomfortable. And so if you've got experience or no experience, like, truly, we don't care here. And we've seen mixed results with each.
That's right.
And so and so it's important to come in without an ego. And then I think to train, I would say you just need to train consistently at the beginning. We have not split out anything here, and I think I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, and you mentioned the book, The Power of Habits. You know the answer. What's the only way to get rid of a habit?
Create a new one.
Replace it.
Replace it, yeah.
So you bring in someone with 2 years of experience. They have previous habits from a different company. They may be good habits that just don't work here. They may be bad habits. So by putting them through the same training as somebody new, we're going to replace their existing habits with new habits that work here.
Yeah. I love it. Makes sense. And again, everyone read that book. It's really good. And yes, Stephen, building off of something you said, checking your ego at the door, I would take it a step further and, not just SDRs, AEs, everyone at the business, you gotta check the ego for sure. Okay. We probably have time for one more question. Let me see. Let's go with this one. Okay. We've got Ilkin. This question is for Matt. What is the importance of communications across departments, specifically sales and marketing? And what are ways to make sure that transition or alignment is smooth? Tough question.
Great question. And I would again take a little wider. I mean, sales and marketing work very closely together to make sure that we're optimizing to the number, in terms of all the things that would happen. But again, because it's broader than just sales and marketing, these are metrics and conversations that the company has in terms of measuring our performance. So we measure revenue efficiency. That's something that we talk about. And we have, we want to be top quartile. We want to be the most revenue efficient. I mean, that's our internal mantra and goal for ourselves. So it's important that we communicate it. And then as a company, what can we all do? What's our piece to help drive and do our part to be even more revenue efficient? So again, it's a broader conversation that happens very often.
Yeah.
Communication is key.
Communication is key. That is, I think, a good place to wrap it up. So communication is key. Embrace the data. Got a lot of great insights from both you gentlemen today. Matt and Stephen, thanks a lot for your time. It was really fun chatting with you both.
Thanks, Scott. Did somebody win the gift card, the $100 gift card?
No one did. I was kind of shocked. It's $100.
Well, what if we do this? Let's keep that open for an hour, and if anyone within 1 hour, first one to get us the answer, we'll still award it.
I love it. I love it. And that's actually a good question. If people want to connect with you, best way to do so is?
Matt Millen on LinkedIn.
Yep. Stephen Farms is on LinkedIn.
Beautiful. Gotta love 2018. All right. Okay. and thank you everyone for joining us at Sales Hacker Community. Hope everyone has a great rest of the week. Take care.
Cheers.
Thanks, Scott.